What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Locked on Sharks Emergency Podcast Edition. Doug Wilson stepping down as general manager of the San Jose Sharks. We both assume that he'll also be stepping down as vice president or president of hockey operations, whatever his other title was. They didn't explicitly say that, but it's got to be assumed that it's all of it. There's no reason he would stay on in that role. He's been with the Sharks for 19 seasons as GM. He took over in 2003, I believe, from Dean Lombardi. And the Sharks have announced that they will be conducting a search starting right away, an exhaustive and extensive search outside of the organization. The search will be led by Joe Will, who's the current interim GM, Hasselplattner, and Jonathan Bescher, who is the president of business operations. And yeah, that's kind of where it's at. Kind of a surprise. We didn't think this would be happening. Honestly, he's been away from the team since November with an unspecified health issue. So hopefully, first and foremost, he is feeling all right, and there's not a more critical health issue at hand. So get better, Doug. But it's an interesting time. This is the first time in most of our hockey watching careers, or when we've been old enough. Like in 2003, I was 14. I didn't really care about Dean Lombardi or some other people. So this is the first time that the Sharks are going to be going through an actual new management, and next season will be the first time that new management staff and new ideas will be filtering through the organization. So kind of a weird time to be a Sharks fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Doug Wilson though, like I think he a little bit underrated just how good of a job he's done it for such a long time. So his record, 731 wins, 437 losses, and 154 for 1,616 points while he was the general manager. Like
that'd be like top like 3 or 4 in the entire league. The thing is if obviously
if he won a cup, we would. Yeah, that's the big.
Yeah,
thing.
he'd be a god. It takes a lot of luck to win a cup.
Yes,
he built some powerhouse teams, and it's not his fault that they lost in the playoffs. If you're a newer fan, obviously we welcome all fans, and if you're a newer fan, it may seem weird that Doug Wilson is held up as this irrelevant figure. If you look at the last few years, but that's not really the case. He was amazing, and anybody who says he wasn't an amazing GM for
a long time.
Well, 2003 to 2000, if you want to cap it at the cup run in 2016, that's 13 straight years.
Or even after their Western,
Well, they went to the finals in 2018. If Erik Karlsson doesn't get hurt, they go to the finals.
Or if the Blues don't just continually headshot player after player too. But that's
that's anywhere, depending on your mileage, that's 13 to 16 straight years of really good Sharks teams. They missed the playoffs like once in 2014.
And they got Timo Meier out of it.
And then went to the cup in 2016. So it's if anybody tells you he wasn't a good GM, just laugh in their face and carry on. They're just trolling or not a genuine actor in this situation. It'll be interesting to see where the Sharks go from here, because it looks like they're not going internal.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at the internal candidates, it'd be Joe Will, and then I guess Doug Wilson Jr. would be the dark horse. Yeah, or Tim Burke. So like, it'll be interesting if these guys stay on, because like if they're going to give, the Sharks approach here is like, are they going to try to find a GM who's going to kind of come in and fit with what they have now, or are they going to find a GM who's going to come in and just kind of start from scratch type of thing? So that I think that's kind of the big question here is like, if you find a GM who's maybe doesn't have all the power and they have to try to like fit with the pieces that are around. Because I mean, we both like Doug Wilson Jr. scouting, and the draft has been kind of what the Sharks have been doing really well recently, but like that kind of hampers maybe, a GM who comes in and, they're not given full say of stuff. So I think that's going to be a very interesting dynamic for the Sharks here. And, like, are you willing to cut off potential losing Doug Wilson Jr. in the draft process to try to maybe get an awesome GM?
Yeah. And I think at this point, now that Wilson is gone, I think you just clean house. I don't think anybody has ever come into a situation and taken the existing infrastructure and gone forward. All GMs like to hire their own coaches. They want to have their own team.
Yep.
I just don't see how you can be like, hey, we want you to come be the GM, but you also have to work within the scouting department of Doug Wilson Jr. and Joe Will is going to be your AGM.
Mhm.
And so basically you're just bringing somebody in to continue the same Sharks philosophy, which that's what you want to do. That's what just keep Joe Will or Doug Wilson Jr. So I think this is an opportunity now to go in a different direction. It's been 20 years of the Wilson direction, and it obviously was fruitful for the most part. So I think this is just a time to reset. And if it means getting rid of Doug Wilson Jr., that's kind of can't really control that. I mean, the one
And
guy
that's
I
not
would
to
like to keep
say.
is
That's not
Doug
to say,
Wilson Jr.
he might, because if he interviews for the job or something, like he might just be the best candidate too as well.
But
So
I don't think he's interviewing for the job. If you read Pierre LeBrun's tweet, he talked about
interviewing for like his scouting job or whatever. Like this type of thing. So if they want to keep him, but you never know.
I really like what he's done the last couple of years, but if a GM comes in, like say, like we'll use Montreal, Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes, if they have a completely different philosophy, but they're like Doug Wilson Jr. is really good at his job, how do you put those two together?
Yeah.
I think the time is now to make a wholesale change and go in a completely new direction and a new era of Sharks hockey. And
by bringing back the old uniforms, that's the first
thing. I just think it'll be too hard. The one person I would want to keep is DW Jr. I think Tim Burke can go. Joe Will can go. You got to remember, Joe Will and Tim Burke have been in the Sharks org basically forever. They are Sharks. They're part of the wallpaper.
Yeah.
Doug Wilson Jr. obviously has been there in his entire hockey career, but he got sent away to do other stuff and played hockey in Australia. He did. So I just don't know. I just don't want to shuffle the deck chairs on the Titanic and have a GM come in and do the exact same things and try to do the same things when you have the opportunity to have a fresh start. With that being said, if they hire anybody that's in the Peter Chiarelli, Ken Holland, Fletcher,
mother down,
Mike Yeo, like Fenton, any of those guys, please, for the love of God, don't. They don't need a retread. You can go somewhere new, try something else. Look at Montreal. They went with Jeff Gorton, who is a hockey guy, but he's not exactly the traditional one, and he did a good job in New York. But he brought in Kent Hughes to be GM. Gorton's the president. Kent Hughes was a player agent. He was a player agent to Chris Letang, for instance. He was a big French player agent. He brought in Hughes, and he immediately brought in Martin St. Louis as coach, and look how that's done. That's the kind of direction that I think San Jose should go in, where they're going with something new. You have an opportunity you didn't win the cup. That's the biggest thing here. You didn't win the cup with Wilson. You got to try something to win the cup for fans now. That should be the goal.
You're going to have a huge swath of young talent coming through the pipeline, really soon. You need to make sure that this GM and coach, and, we assume Bob Bugner is probably gone too at this point. So whoever that they're good at this player development, especially these young players, and putting these young players in a position to succeed. So I think that's the biggest thing with whoever they hire. How do you develop these young players? We think there's a lot of special young players coming up through the organization. So,
well, and it's not even just develop. It's a clear plan for getting back to the Stanley Cup. So the Pierre LeBrun tweet said, the Sharks GM search plans to be extensive. If I had to guess, a dozen or so candidates at the outset, varying from former GMs, up-and-coming AGMs, player agents, former players. And the intention is not to rush the process. Willing to wait to talk to all targeted candidates.
Oh, they're getting Joel Embiid?
That's the process, baby. MVP. He followed that up with interim GM Joe Will and current Sharks front office can navigate the team through the draft and free agency. Sharks won't rush a GM hire if they don't need to.
Interesting.
Sounds there's, depending on the former player, if it's Scott Mellenby, he was a really good AGM and he's cut his teeth in Montreal and some other places. That's different than just straight up hiring Joe Thornton as an AGM, which should never be, or as a GM. We're going to go through a list of guys, but there is some interesting AGMs and former GMs and former players who are now in front offices that could be had. The fine line to walk here, though, is that the Chiarellis and the Hollands and the Fletchers and the Fentons, they exist. They will, if they Everybody should prep themselves now for the inevitable Peter Chiarelli interview. Because he just seems to always get an interview, but like it would be really refreshing to see them come out with a list of Darsh, Fuda, Gillis, Mellenby, Castonguay, all of these people that will provide something different. So we will break that down Tuesday.
Plenty of content for the content boys now.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sharks. What your lasting kind of Doug Wilson before we get out of here?
I'm going to take 5 phone calls all at once right now, just to live vicariously for him.
All the phones.
I mean,
it's got to be the Joe Thornton trade. Yeah, he brought Joe Thornton to San Jose.
Without Doug Wilson, there's no Joe Thornton, and there's no Joe Thornton in an absolute heist. Yeah, we'll always have the 2016 Stanley Cup Finals. But yeah, I think it's the Joe Thornton trade. I think the lasting memory of Doug Wilson will not only just be the success, but how aggressively he won trades and how often he was fleecing people for trades. Like look at Brent Burns, the Brent Burns trade,
the Brent Burns trade,
Joe Thornton trade.
Yeah.
You can go back and look at tons and tons of different trades, like the Gustav Nyquist trade. He was always willing to go at it for it at the deadline. Yeah, I just think Doug Wilson absolutely grinding people down. Remember the Mike Hoffman laundering deal? That was sick.
What a morning that was.
That was unreal. Yeah. So Doug Wilson is just a kick-ass GM for a long time, and one of the great GMs. Will definitely be that, and he got to go in the Hall of Fame as a player this year. So, it's sad to see him go, but he'll be honored by the Sharks somehow. Doug Wilson did say in his statement that he looks to continue his NHL career in the future. I don't know what that means. Probably when he gets better. When he gets better, he'll probably want to try to come back, but hopefully he does get better first and foremost. So
yeah, that's the big thing is get better. And yeah, I'm sure he'll be back as some like advisor where he brings in a nice fat chunk of money where he just answers the phone once a week
or if he recovers and he's feeling good. He's only 64. If he recovers and feels good, I mean, like he could go to another team and try to do something there. But I think the thing first is he just needs to get healthy, and hopefully that's not something more serious, and he just needs to focus more.
Yep. Kyle, where can people find us?
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Locked on Sharks, YouTube, Locked on Sharks, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Locked on Sharks. JD's at my fry hole.
Kyle's at Kyle Demetrius. We'll be back tomorrow with a breakdown of tonight's game against the Flams. So
the Flams, and then we'll have GM content and more draft profiles coming up next week.
Yeah, we have a draft profile recorded like early this week. That's going to
get excited for Gleb, baby.
Gleb. So, bye, friends.